The worst dilution happens at your Series Seed financing when all your safes convert. I call it the double whammy, right? You get whammed by your safes converting, that dilutes you 10 to 30%, and then the Series Seed financing dilutes you 10 to 30%. So if you went from holding like 90% of the company, you can come down to like 56%, best case scenario. Wow. That's 20% dilution.
Welcome to Inside Startup Funding, where you get to learn about raising capital from founders, funders, and today, an attorney who makes deals every day. I'm Helena Fogarty. I'm a fundraising expert who helps startups raise their seed and Series A rounds. And today, I'm speaking with Yashreeka Huq, a partner at Perkins Coie, one of the most prominent law firms in the startup ecosystem. Perkins Coie has been counsel to thousands of emerging companies and the venture capital firms that back them. Yashreeka works in their emerging companies and venture capital law practice, specializing in early to late stage startups. And what makes her perspective particularly unique is her founder-first approach and her experience on both sides of the table. She represents both emerging companies and their investors, giving her a 360-degree view of fundraising dynamics. Yashreeka and her team at Perkins Coie serve as strategic advisors and outside general counsel to emerging companies, helping with everything from corporate governance and equity management to fundraising strategy and term sheet negotiations. So let's dive into the legal side of fundraising with someone who truly gets the founder experience. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Happy to be here.
So I'd love to take it back to kind of the origin story.
Sure.
Why did you decide to become a lawyer?
Great question. I am one of those people who maybe came out of the womb being argumentative. And so my whole life I was told you should be a lawyer because my whole life I've been on some kind of soapbox arguing on behalf of someone who I felt like needed to be advocated for.
Nice.
I did, though, also want to be a ballerina.
Mhm.
So one of those things worked out.
Mhm.
But becoming a lawyer was I think always in the cards. But what was surprising was that I didn't end up being a litigator, and I instead ended up being a transactional attorney. I actually think the best transactional attorneys would have been good litigators too, because so much of our job is still advocating and so much of our job is still writing. We still, like, maybe it's in emails instead of briefs, but it's still having to to make our point very succinctly in writing. I think it's also negotiations are a form of public speaking, of course. So I think a lot of the things that would have made me a good litigator also have made me a good transactional attorney. I wanted to be a transactional attorney because things end with a win-win in transactions. Everyone is
They should.
excited. They
Yes.
should.
Yeah.
Everyone's very excited to do when the deal closes, and that's really satisfying to me. The idea of there being a winner or a loser in litigation. I did speech and debate growing up. I was like, am I really going to sign up for the stress of debate competitions for the rest of my life?
Yeah.
So I much prefer the win-win. So I take the things that I like about litigation, and I've applied them towards transactional work. So that's been really exciting. But yeah, happy to be a lawyer, happy to be a lawyer who's sort of business-minded and gets to really advocate for my founders. I really appreciate you saying that in the introduction that I'm founder first. Like it's so important to me. I kind of want to be a lawyer who's so known for it that if an executive CEO comes in, that they'll be like, well, I think we have to fire Yashreeka. She's too founder friendly. I'm happy to be fired. I think I serve a purpose, and then I'm okay.
Are you
stepping
happy with
away.
us using that as the clip?
Absolutely. Fire me if you think I'm too founder friendly. That's a good reputation in my book.
Nice. So I have some questions because, like, in business school,
Yeah.
we had one, maybe two courses on negotiation. Is law school just all about it? Like, what, you came up with debate. You've been negotiating quite a bit.
I love that you think that, and I want to preserve that perception. But no, actually, law school is heavily geared toward litigation. Actually, And it makes sense. So litigators, a big part of their job is spotting issues, and that's what you learn in law school. How to like read a set of facts, spot the issues, be able to apply some kind of analysis to that and then reach a conclusion. Like that's what we learn over and over in law school. That's applicable to both litigation and transactional work. But then law school will go into some of the like how to actually litigate with like civil procedure and other classes that really teach you the intricacies of litigating. It never actually happens for transactional lawyers. They're starting to have some more practicums that are taught by actual practitioners. But corporate law, like transactional law, you really learn by doing. You learn through osmosis, actually. You learn by just like being around it. First, you learn the language. There's so much lingo to sort of pick up on. And then the concepts start to like solidify, but you learn by doing some of the most basic tasks. And then it grows and grows and grows. And what's on all of our minds is in an AI world, when some of those basic tasks go away, how are we going to train transactional attorneys that don't necessarily get trained in law school? It's something we're all grappling with, but we do want to remind everyone that the email and the internet completely shifted the way all people worked. And there were a lot of people who would have said, how could you possibly learn the law if you're not writing down, all of this information? And we have turned out just fine with being able to like do things faster. So we'll figure it out. But for now, no law school, no negotiation. You learn how to do it as a lawyer, watching others, and then you get your at-bats and you learn how to negotiate. It's one of my favorite parts of the job. It can be tough, though. There's sometimes you good cop, bad cop, and in news that will surprise no one, the lawyer can often be the bad cop.
Yes.
So sometimes I'm like sort of sicked on the other side's lawyer to be the bad guy so that my client can then come in and say, I know that Yashreeka was very forceful about this thing, but maybe we could do this middle ground. And that was like a strategy.
Yeah.
But it's fine. Again, I'm happy to be known as someone who like vigorously advocates for her clients. That's fine with me. But yeah, negotiating could be it's certainly an art.
Yeah. And so how did you end up in startup law?
Yeah, so I started out as an M&A lawyer at a white shoe Wall Street firm, doing mega deals. I actually started out with like big leverage buyouts. LBOs were a big thing at that time. So I did these huge transactions, got great training. Then I started doing a lot of private equity M&A. I'll be honest, representing like private equity types, my whole career felt a little like this is not, I don't know that this will sustain me or make me feel like I have purpose. Then I learned that you could represent startup founders, and at least as an associate, you could make the same amount of money as an M&A lawyer. And that's still kind of curious, I think, to anyone that like you could represent a company doing a $3 million financing or a company doing a $3 billion M&A deal and make the same amount of money. It's brain drain is the reason. It's because if we didn't pay our associates who do startup as much as we pay the M&A lawyers, they would all stay or go to M&A.
Yeah.
So it worked, right? I moved from M&A to startup. So, hopefully considered like top tier talent, moved to startup and providing that level of talent to startups. I think it makes a ton of sense, but it makes the law firm, it makes the economics of startups, of us representing startups, challenging. And we can maybe get to that a little bit later. But I went and realized I could represent startup founders. My sister is a founder in Silicon Valley. She's worked at a number of startups, started her own companies. And I never thought I could represent her. I just thought, I don't know, I do these like $1 billion deals. Like I'm trying to make a lot of money. That's like important to me.
Yeah.
So I just didn't even think that. And then this whole world opened up of these amazing, a lot of them are Silicon Valley based law firms that have come up to support the startups from inception all the way through exit. So all of the big companies Amazon, Facebook, and Google, and all of them started out as startups. So there are law firms that represented them from inception. Perkins represented Amazon from inception and then took it public. It still represents Amazon.
Wow.
So there's a whole business model to that. I love it. Like, I get to finally be, like, in the truest sense of the word, someone's counsel.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I get to be there for the most important moments of their professional life, and it suits me so well to be equal parts lawyer, strategist, therapist, friend, tough love. Sometimes I have to give the tough love. All of those things, like, I'm a whole person, and I get to bring my whole person to the job. It's very different than just being an M&A lawyer. I get to be, external general counsel, in some ways, but sometimes that doesn't even capture it because I do get to help on the, like, business side of things so often. I think you've probably heard me say this. I say this a lot, that lawyers see more deals in the startup ecosystem than any other stakeholder.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And I'm so I think it's so wonderful that you're including our perspective in this podcast series. Like, that is, I think we're forgotten a little bit. But I do hundreds of deals a year. I represent hundreds of startups a year. And so I can keep my hand is on the pulse of what's market in a way that, like, VC firms certainly don't do so many deals a year. And founders, of course, don't do so many deals a year. So I, like, am the keeper of so much knowledge. And I think some of us lawyers have been doing some gatekeeping, and I don't want to do that anymore. I want to, like, freely share this information with whoever, is open to it, because we really kind of see what's going on and can kind of take the temperature of the market.
And I think that's one of the benefits of working in such a large firm as well, because you have other people that you in your area
Yeah.
that are doing this every day, and you're the head of the group, so you kind of know what's going on, which I love.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there's, like, 40 startup and venture partners at Perkins, and we all have hundreds of startups and hundreds of financings we're doing a year. And so we can share that knowledge, absolutely. And obviously with technology, it's incredible. We still have weekly calls to, like, discuss stuff, but then of course we have chats and texts and all of that. We're constantly freely sharing information. Like, a thing that will happen a lot is a founder will ask me, are you seeing this, right? Are you seeing a lot of secondaries right now? And then I'll blast out to all my partners and say, what are we seeing right now with respect to secondaries? So I can do, like, a really great market check within my own firm.
Yeah, and having someone on your side can really, like, it's a shortcut. Like, I work with a lot of founders on financings and just getting them ready.
Yeah,
And I can look, there's so many people I meet with, and I'm like, the terms you're considering right now are not market.
correct.
I know that, but I don't
Yeah.
have the level of knowledge that
Right.
you do.
Oh, yeah, I can say it with a lot of confidence,
Yeah.
for sure. I also want to flag that I can say this is what's market, but we should maybe move the market.
Yep.
I feel very strongly that sometimes the market is wrong, and we can explain that to the other side. Our chances of winning the point are going to go down considerably, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't take a shot at it.
Yeah.
And I feel really, really strongly that some lawyers treat different startups differently, meaning the sort of prototype of the founder changes the way they give advice. So I have seen a lot of lawyers counsel women to play right down the fairway.
Yep.
It's going to be hard for you to raise money anyway, so don't do anything weird, because we need to be we need to, like, remove any kind of hair so that it's not hard. We don't make it harder for you to raise. But you're saying that, and you're kind of in a paternalistic way saying, this is what I think you should do. I think I should educate my client on all of the various things we could do, explain how this thing is aggressive, this thing isn't as aggressive. Here are the consequences. Here's how it can feel like hair on the transaction. Really explain all of the options the founder has, and then let them make a decision about their risk appetite. And so I think there's some amount of the market says to do this, and then we're only telling certain founders they should abide by the market. And then other founders we think will be more successful because of whatever boxes they check. We then are providing them with other options to be more aggressive.
Yeah.
So honestly, this is a little bit of a PSA to all lawyers. Like, let's be really careful. We actually have a lot of power.
Yeah.
We have a lot of power to determine like who is going to or like the approach that a founder is going to take um in the life of their startup, like with respect to board control and with respect to other ways in which they could lose that they can lose control with like stockholder veto rights and director veto rights and things like that. We actually have a lot of power to influence the founders in the way that they're thinking about those things. Let's be really careful that we are advocating for our clients the same way, no matter what they look like or where they come from.
Yeah, and I think what you're talking about is really important, but it's funny because even me,
Mm-hmm.
a woman, even you, like I have internalized
We
patriarchal
oh,
things.
yeah.
Like I have
Can
to check
absolutely
myself sometimes.
absolutely.
Yeah.
One thing I will say though is like I love my white guy founders. Like they are fantastic, and I find that if I can give the best advice to women, people of color, queer founders,
Mhm.
like then that advice is going to be great for white guys too. Like it's like they'll benefit from that because I'm being so thoughtful about making sure I'm giving all of the opportunities and outcomes and pathways to underrepresented founders. If I do that too for the white guys too, they benefit as well. And I think that's why I have a lot of success, honestly,
Mhm.
with founders across the spectrum in all ways, gender, race, everything, because I think they realize that, oh, wow, like, because lawyers can be paternalistic even with the traditional founders,
Yeah.
and be like, oh, I know that this is like AI for, barbecues. And so, like, I've heard of that actually, by the way. So that's why that's so funny. But like an AI for a barbecue smoker, you're going to make some presumptions about the success of that startup and whether or not they should, again, play things down the fairway and not do anything weird. But it's like, instead, let's give that person all the options and then see what they want to do. So I think that like this is good advice, no matter what kind of founder you have, to make sure that we're not making decisions for them and we're educating them on what all their options are.
So if you give them all the options
Yeah.
and then they come back and say, yes, but what do you really think?
Oh, yeah, I'll tell them. Yeah, and actually, I'm not even gonna wait for that because that can be really aggravating,
Mhm.
right? It's like, "Ugh, Yashreeka sent me another email with, like, 10 different options." I still have great, I think, EQ to understand the situation.
Yeah.
So, in fact, I have some founders where I know they'll have decision paralysis,
Mhm.
and so I'm like, I just have to it's not so much that I then hide which way they should go, but I'm like immediately like, this is what I think you should do.
Mhm.
Because I think it helps them to get out of that decision paralysis. So I almost always will tell them what I think they should do at the end of it. That is what I'm getting paid for, right?
Right.
And with ChatGPT and all of these things, you can understand, or you can figure out what your options are just through an LLM. So what they're coming to me now for is my expertise. And in some ways, lawyers are the best LLM that there is.
Mhm.
Like, you ask me a question and I spit out an answer based on a lot of data, like my model has been trained on a lot of data.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, I have judgment, I have EQ, I have context, right? We haven't quite figured out how to AI context
Mhm.
yet, or work context into AI. So I still think I have a lot to offer. So no, don't worry. I do give like with the path that I think the founder should go down, but I always kind of give all of the context for why and then what their other options are.
Are you able to, I guess, sort founders into archetypes after working with them? Or is it, no, each one is their own special butterfly?
Mm,
Because you're
yeah.
talking, I'm like, yes, analysis paralysis. And then you've got
Yeah.
some people are just like, probably FAFO, like fuck around and find out. I don't know. There's a whole range there.
This question is putting me on the spot, and so I'm going to give you my instinctive answer, which is that no, I don't. I don't bucket founders at all. Like, they are so their own unique person.
Yeah.
And I've really sort of, sorry to continue the AI metaphor, but like have taken in so much data about this person that now my advice has gotten completely tailored to that person.
Amazing. As it should be.
Yeah. I can't say that I bucket any of them. No, they're like, I don't, it's very paternalistic to say they're like your children, but they are like family members for sure. And they all matter to me. And so like I would never be able to pick a favorite or anything like that. They do like madden me like family members too. So I also wouldn't be able to pick a favorite because they all annoy the crap out of me. But yeah, no archetypes.
So when you're representing both startups and VCs,
Oh yeah,
how do you manage that? Is there ever
I have a lot of thoughts about this.
Yeah.
There's a huge conflict to represent on both sides of the same transaction.
Yeah.
So we never do that.
Right.
So to be clear, and if any VC fund is asking you to do that my lawyer is going to represent me and you, I need you to. That's a big red flag. That's a big red flag, and it by the way, it happens. So I'm saying this as like something to really look out for.
Yeah.
I think that is almost completely out of favor. There's also this idea that we lawyers represent venture funds in order for the venture funds to refer us to their portfolio companies to be their lawyers. That is a very common business model. It's a great business model. It's served a lot of people really well. This is going to be a little controversial. I think that is falling out of favor, and I think we should start really thinking about that a little bit. It can still work, though. A way that it can really work is you represent the investor investing in a portfolio company in one financing, and then in the next financing, you represent the portfolio company, and the investor gets different counsel.
Yeah.
Possible for that to work because after that first investment, the investor and the company are on the same side. It depends, though, on the investor on whether or not that's going to be true to form in the next financing. So I want startup founders to be really thoughtful about that. Don't don't completely throw it away if a venture fund recommends that their lawyer should be your lawyer, because they have a lot of faith in their lawyer. So that's very, very good. But I want founders to be thoughtful about whether or not what the personality is of the investor, whether they are going to put their thumb on the scale with the lawyer when they're representing you. So please be thoughtful about that. That works against my own self-interest, by the way, because again, it is a major sort of distribution channel for us that we represent VC funds and they refer us to the portfolio companies. Now, there is a different business model, though, where we can represent venture funds in order to learn how venture funds tick, to understand what they care about, understand like what's their diligence process, how are they thinking about things, understanding how the market is changing with them, and then using that to be better lawyers on the company side. And that's why I represent venture funds. That's why I think it's really important. In fact, the venture funds I represent, I really tell them, like, look, it's not part of my business model that you refer me to your portfolio companies. If they need counsel, if they're like, I need counsel, please put my hat in the ring, of course. But like, that's not the pressure, like that's not the the incentive structure I want here. I want to represent you, venture fund, to the best of my ability. I don't ever want you to like worry about a conflict there. But then the venture fund, like they teach me how to be a better lawyer for company side. I'm a company side lawyer. I aim to be a founder friendly company side lawyer. I'd say like 75-80% of my practice is company side. But I represent venture funds, so that's the best way to understand how venture funds tick. And then what also can happen is that venture funds can refer me to other people that they meet out in the ecosystem. They actually meet tons of startups that they can actually invest in, right? So it'll all, what goes around comes around. But yeah, I think you need to be really careful. I think lawyers need to start thinking about whether or not it's okay to represent the portfolio companies of the investors that they already represent. But yeah, in terms of like like just how do I keep it all straight?
Yeah.
Um,
That was my question. Yeah.
yeah, it's a good question. It's I do this day in and day out. I've done it for a number of years now. I think the muscle memory is there and understanding. So I don't think I'm like making mistakes with being like, oh no, I actually want the pre-money valuation to be higher or lower. Like that's all, I definitely have put in my 10,000 hours,
Yes.
As Malcolm Gladwell says. So I feel like okay about that. So no, you can keep it straight. I think I'm okay. And yeah, it's actually a lot of fun. Also, I'll say venture funds and startups, the really good venture funds are so founder friendly themselves that I sometimes am providing them with the less founder friendly alternative, and they're like, no, Yashreeka, like I'm not we don't need to do that. And I'm like, in my head I'm like, yes, excellent. Like you want that reputation of being founder friendly. You don't
Yeah.
want to do the like crazy thing. So again, true to form for my way of counseling, I'll give them all of the options. But I'd like to think that like minds find each other, right? So my venture funds that I represent are founder friendly. I think they take the founder friendly approach. So then it's really not hard to keep things separate because everyone is super aligned on, how things should go after the financing closes.
Yeah. So I've always heard, not always, I've heard recently that, or somewhere in there, last couple of years, this is obvious. So I don't know why I'm mentioning it, but
Please, no, please.
that attorneys are a great way to get intros to
Oh yeah.
investors.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if we're talking about you representing VCs
Mhm.
and then also being a source of introduction,
Yeah.
what happens when you bring two together?
Oh yeah, that's so interesting. I have had a founder refer me to their investor.
Mhm.
So yeah, I've had some of that.
Is there a way that, like, within the firm that two different attorneys could be representing the two different sides if they
Yeah,
enter into
yes.
Okay.
People can waive conflicts and
Mhm.
do that. So it can happen. It's very rare,
Okay.
and I don't think I'd feel comfortable doing that.
Yeah.
Instead, though, I'll refer one side to another lawyer, and so that's why it's really important for lawyers to have a network of other lawyers,
Yeah.
so we can feel really comfortable with that. It just happened where a partner at my prior law firm referred a client to me that they were conflicted out from representing, and I gotta say, what's amazing is that partner was one of my biggest mentors at my prior firm. It's like he's still mentoring me
Yeah.
even after leaving the firm. So he referred that client to me. And so I represented that client when I was at the previous firm. It was totally natural for me to do that.
Mhm.
So you figure it out. You figure out how to make it work.
Yeah.
I did want to pause just real quick on lawyers making introductions to VCs. So first of all, anytime I create a new relationship with a VC, I ask if they're open to introductions.
Mhm.
Pretty uniformly, I've now heard from investors that they love it. Investors are always very concerned about whether they are in some kind of echo chamber and aren't getting deal flow from like across the spectrum. And so they love deal flow. Like any new pathway to see more companies, I think they're very happy with. I do find though that like a cold intro from me, I don't know if that's really providing a ton of value.
Mhm.
I think the value is when I can back channel an interaction you're already having. So it's like this venture fund is I'm in conversations with this venture fund. We're on like conversation 2, 3, 4. If I know that investor, I can then back channel and say, hey, by the way, that's my client
Nice.
and they're amazing.
Yeah.
And like when they say the deal is hot, I'm telling you it's hot. So please pay attention and move quickly.
Yeah.
Um, that back channeling is actually how I can be the most useful, because investors are like anyone and they can operate on FOMO, fear of missing out. And so if they are hearing a founder's name from multiple directions, they start to feel like, oh my gosh, I'm hearing about this founder from everyone. I have to invest. If I can add to that chorus of voices by being another one who's like, yeah, and I represent them, it's really positive. So I can make intros, the initial cold intro, make it warm, or I can back channel too, which is, I think, a really a constructive way to use your lawyer.
Yeah, I love that.
Mhm.
Adding to the little chorus of
Yep.
voices.
Oh,
You
yeah.
got to get into this.
It's got to come from all directions. So you should back channel everyone who possibly has a connection to that person.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how small it is, even if it's just an email that's like, hey, I hear you're talking to so-and-so. I know them from this one thing. It doesn't even have to be like effusive, right?
Yeah.
But it just adds another data point for them of like, oh, like it's, starting to really circle me and this deal must be hot, so I should invest.
That's cool. That's a trick.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Yep.
You do a lot of educational work with founders.
Yeah. Oh,
Can
I
you
love
talk a
that.
little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. So I help a number of accelerators, which is I'm really passionate about. Because again, I think we lawyers have all this information and we need to disseminate it efficiently. So there are a few things that I do. So one is understanding cap table math. So I feel really passionately about founders going into their financings knowing how much of the cap table they're going to give away.
Yeah.
And the worst dilution happens at your Series Seed financing when all your safes convert. I call it the double whammy, right? You get whammed by your safes converting, that dilutes you 10 to 30%, and then the Series Seed financing dilutes you 10 to 30%. So if you went from holding like 90% of the company, you can come down to like 56%, best case scenario. That's 20% dilution.
Yeah.
So it is, it can be really, really brutal. And I want my founders to go in eyes wide open. And here's the thing, I'm not even saying that then you won't do the deal. I actually feel really passionately about how you should over-index on control over dilution.
Yep.
So it's not even that you won't take the deal or do those terms. It's that you go in with eyes wide open and you can say, okay, you're going to get 20% of my company, but you know what you're not going to get? Control of the company.
Yeah.
I'm going to retain all of these rights. You can beat me up on valuation, but I'm going to preserve all of this. You go into the negotiation with a lot of confidence if you know exactly how much of your cap table you're giving away.
Yeah.
So I have this thing I call my magic cap table, and it shows you what your dilution will look like at the seed financing before you even raise your pre-seed, because it'll show you the safes converting and the new money coming in. A lot of lawyers actually say like, oh, it's called a pro forma. Preparing a pro forma in those early days doesn't make any sense. You have to make all these assumptions about the future. I'm like, yeah, make assumptions about the future. That's what startups do. They make all kinds of assumptions about their trajectory for like ARR.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't we do that for capital table dilution as well? And then you can play with the inputs and then see what the dilution looks like. So I'm really passionate about cap table math. I'm really passionate about term sheets and actually understanding, like we walk through one. Shout out to Claire Bernacki at BBG Ventures. We've done this a number of times where we have gone through a term sheet. We call it term sheet teardown. And we go through the term sheet. And what's really important is that you get past the economics, right? The economics are really important. A really important feature is that the option pool increase is actually an economic term. It impacts your cap table and valuation and all of that. But people will stop at the top of the term sheet, right, with just the economics.
Yeah.
It's important to go through the whole thing and understand the other levers that they'll push and pull. In that same vein with cap table math, it's like, I want you to understand the economics, and then I want you to understand everything else that's important.
Yeah.
And so we go through that. I'd say the third and final thing I focus on with educating founders is like, I've raised money, now what? So it's like Series Seed readiness, Series A readiness. I think a lot of founders raise the money, and I would like to encourage the founders, allocate some of those funds to legal. You have put a lot of stuff on the back burner. Let's get them off the back burner.
See that in the use of funds usually.
Yeah.
So that's important.
Exactly. But I also can be helpful with being like, this is how much you should allocate a month for your legal burn. Like every founder has a runway spreadsheet, right?
Yeah.
That shows how much they're going to burn on everything. There's a line item for legal. I'm like, can you share that with me? Like, can you tell me what you're planning on spending a month on legal so then I can stay within that, or like counsel you that like this is going to be a heavy month, and like I want to work with you. So if you tell me, okay, I'm budgeting literally 2,000 a month, which hurts my feelings, right? I'm like, that is not a lot of money, but fine. That actually means 24,000 for the year.
Yeah.
I'm like, that actually, we're in, that kind of makes sense because it'll even out month to month. So share with your
Still
lawyer.
not a lot of money.
It's not, but I can live with it because I invest in the relationships now so that one day your legal budget will be 10,000 a month and everyone is very happy. But in those early days, I can make it work. I really can. But like, a pro tip is to share with your lawyers how much you're budgeting for legal. So then they can keep that in their mind too, because they'll help kind of keep the fees down as well. So I do that with a lot of my founders where I ask them, what are you budgeting this year? We'll stay within that for the year for day-to-day legal. Financings, there's like a different budget for that, obviously, but that can come out of the use of proceeds, as you said. So that's a separate conversation, but day-to-day legal needs, like, we can help you like stay within the budget that you've set for yourself.
So let's go through like pre-seed, what you're seeing pre-seed and seed, and when you see typically like the first prize round.
Yeah, sure. So I typically see on average like 2 rounds of safes before the Series Seed financing. So sometimes we call that first round friends and family. I think that there are a lot of founders who don't have friends or family who can put money in. So let's call it the angel round.
Yes.
So the angel round is pre-seed. I generally see that to be around $500,000. And this is separate from the AI shenanigans of like raising insane amounts of money. Like that's different. Those are outliers though. That's like what you see in TechCrunch and all of that. I know it's very easy to get like pulled in that's what the market is. No, those are outliers that make the news. What's not making the news is you raise less than $1 million in that angel round. I would say like between 250 to 500K. And then that gets you going. Like very little happens with that money other than probably a little bit of hiring, still not even that much, but it's like getting your like AWS account and Twilio account and things like that. I mean, it's really gonna go fast. Then your pre-seed round, I see that being 1 to 3 million. You raise that about 6 months in, and that should last you 12 to 18 months, and a lot can happen with that 1 to 3 million. What I would say happens is you team first and foremost. You add the people that you need to build your MVP, your minimum viable product. I don't see a ton of pre-seed startups who raise that pre-seed putting their product in market, but I think in this AI world, we are seeing that more. That with the pre-seed money, we not only need to build them, hire team, build the MVP, but put it in market.
Yeah.
And I think that's because it's becoming cheaper to build the MVP. So you should be able to do more with less. That's like very, very much easier said than done. Like it's not, AI is not just like, it's not as easy as people think it is.
Yeah.
But you should be able to do more with less and put it in market. And then the best pre-seed investors all talk about how they're not looking for traction, they're looking for momentum. And shout out to Jenny Fielding from Everywhere Ventures. Like she's the one who I first heard say this, which is like traction is absurd for like an MVP just in market. Like we're not like that can't be the only metric. It's a great metric if you have it, but it can't be the only one. Momentum is like adding team members, right? And the quality of those team members. I find that a lot of my startup founders in their like, the half-page blurb that they send with their deck, they're not emphasizing team enough in that blurb. Like that's everything. Like that's what people are investing in is the people. So momentum can be adding team members. Momentum can be building the MVP. You can show momentum in other ways that aren't just customer acquisition. And so that's what's happening in pre-seed. And then when you raise your seed financing, that's when I think you really are starting to focus on customer acquisition and really showing traction and speed. And then I would say between seed and A, you want to see 3 to 4x growth on your ARR,
Yeah.
which can be really, really challenging. So my opinion, just based on my own experience, is that the Series A is like the hardest round to raise.
Huh.
Probably like any money is the hardest round to
Yeah.
raise, right? Like the angel round. So barring like getting anyone to write a check,
Yeah.
because that's very hard. But the Series A is so tough because you have to show actual like exponential growth
Yeah.
between the seed and the A.
Yep.
So I see a lot of folks raising like an interim round between the seed and the A because they're not quite at A metrics yet. So yeah, that's how I sort of see things from angel to pre-seed, seed to A. Obviously, that it can be different, depending on the circumstances, but I do think it's important to understand that lay of the land, but not beat yourself up if that's not how it works out for you.
And do you typically see a priced round at seed or at Series A?
Seed, yeah. I okay, this is really important. I think we've forgotten about this because like it was part of the 2020, 2021 craze. But like people want to be like, I have 100 million of ARR and I'm only a Series B company, right? That was like a thing. It's still a thing. Like you want to outpace what the typical metrics are. So push it off a little bit.
Yeah.
I have a lot of people who will raise 2 million on their pre-seed and they'll say, "Oh, I want to call it's a seed. I'm raising 2 million. It's so much." I'm like, "No, let's call it a pre-seed." And then if you get to $1 million of ARR at your seed, you already are like beating what's market. And so you're ahead of the game. So like I think people think it's a flex to say it's a series seed or say it's a series A. No, we actually want to say my angel round was $2 million. Like you want to push that off so that you lower the expectations for your future rounds. So I find that the angel round and pre-seed are on safes and the series seed is a priced round. Really important to recognize we can do a safe round in like a couple days. A price round takes 4 to 6 weeks at least to paper the transaction. Then it could drag even further if the lead investor says, I'm putting in, let's say, 2 of the 4, but I want to see 3 of the 4 million close at the same time that I do.
Yeah.
So you have to go out and find other investors to fill out that 3 million. So it could be 4 to 6 weeks just to paper it. And then it could be another month, 2 months, 3 months to fill out the syndicate. So a price round takes a lot of time and energy, and then also there's long form documents, like over 100 pages of documentation.
Yeah.
So a ton to negotiate and hammer out, and so sometimes it can be premature to be thinking about that. So I'm like, let's do safes so that we're not even thinking about all that corporate governance and all of that. We're just focused on like running as fast as possible. So there are plenty of times that I advocate for safes, even though I technically make more money off of a priced round.
Yeah.
I care way more about the success of your company, and sometimes that means that you need to raise money quickly and not be distracted. So safes can be the better option. So occasionally I do see a series seed on safes if we're raising really fast between rounds.
And do you see term sheets on safes? Like if you're going out with a safe,
Yeah.
I've heard side letters that
No.
like term sheets. Term sheets are more of a price round.
No, and I think it's wasting time to do
Yeah.
term sheets with a safe round. In fact, if someone asks for one or offers one up, it's a kind of a red flag to me that you're unsophisticated.
Yeah.
The only levers to really pull for a safe are valuation cap and discount, size of the round maybe. And then in the side letter, we really should only be talking about information rights and pro rata rights. If we're talking about anything else, we're dealing with an investor that there should be red flags going up, that they're going to bog you down in a lot of crap that's like not that's going to distract you. And so they're like, it's a red flag about taking their money. Not all money is green, but not all money is good.
Yeah.
So I would be careful about that. So no, I don't see term sheets with safes. Occasionally, like it could make sense. It's not to say I've never done one, but a safe is also a 4-page document.
Yeah.
So to do a 1-page term sheet on a 4-page document is kind of silly.
So most angels, I believe, don't do a lot of side letters. I don't know if that's correct, but friends and family, absolutely no side letters.
I agree.
Angels, fewer. But when you get to institutional capital, it sounds like side letters on a safe are pretty common.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they should be so this is how I'm founder friendly, and I will upset some investors, and that's just life. Okay. Happy to give pro rata to any and all safe holders.
Mhm.
So in priced rounds, we give pro rata to bigger investors called major investors. I think early investors deserve pro rata for being early believers and investing when the investment is the most risky. They should all get pro rata. I don't think it should last forever. I think that pro rata pre-seed should terminate at the seed financing.
Mhm.
This is corroborated by YC, the YC side letter with safes, and YC put out the original, the safe that we all work with.
Yes.
Their side letter has pro rata terminating at the priced round, so I'm not off market here. The reason why I'm like, oh, I could upset some investors is that some investors think I'm investing so early when it's so risky. I should get a right to true up my, percentage ownership at every round forever.
Right.
Like that should be my right. I hear you, and I think that you should trust that the founder is going to make room for you in every possible scenario that they possibly can. But giving it to you contractually can really cause some complexity down the line.
Yeah.
And maybe it'd be okay to give it to you, but then if I give you a 50K investor this pro rata right forever, how do I justify not giving it to other folks investing at or more than what you're putting in? So it puts the founder in a really, really difficult position to give sort of pro rata rights in perpetuity. But pro rata rights until the first financing round, fine. And I think you should freely give that to any investor who requests it.
Love that. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
So when should someone come to you as a founder?
Yeah. Yeah.
Considering no money or self-funding.
I want it to be as early as possible, and I wish I could just engage every founder the minute they think about it. But I do, we do charge for our services. So I have to be mindful of that. And I don't want my founders to have my legal fees hanging over their head as this additional stressor. So a lot of us startup lawyers are happy to give deferrals, and I'm happy to do that. And a deferral is that you start the clock on billable hours, but you don't ask for payment until a certain milestone. That milestone is often raising a certain amount of money. It can be anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million. But it's always going to be the earlier of raising that money or some time period. Somewhere between 6 months to a year is most customary. And that means that at 6 months or a year, we may be like, hey, you haven't raised any money, but we've accrued $25K of legal fees. Do we go knocking down doors? Definitely not. It actually just means we're probably going to have a conversation at that point. But it adds stress to my founders to know they have this 25K bill. Presumably, I've done a good job and they like me and value my services, so that makes it even worse. So I think deferrals are usually 25K. I think deferrals should be 6 months to a year. So I want you to think about whether or not you do realistically think that you will raise money between 6 months to a year from now.
Yeah.
Both of us need to assess that. So I actually have conversations with the founders, and I'm pitching them, but they're pitching me a little bit to see, do we see a real path to fundraising in the next 6 to 12 months? If that's the case, it's a good idea to engage because we want to make sure everything is buttoned up so that when you do get a term sheet or you do get an investor who wants to do the safe financing, that we can move really, really quickly because everything is sort of buttoned up. So that's how I would think about it is like, is there a real path to pay my legal fees? Then you wanna be thinking about, like, why engage the most expensive game in town, which I am at a firm that is one of the priciest. Not the priciest, but one of the priciest, and so the question is, why would I go to Perkins Coie when I'm raising my early stage rounds, when I could go to a smaller shop, like a more boutique law firm or a solo practitioner who will charge me, like, half of what Perkins will charge? It's a totally valid question. Um, it's a personal, sort of business decision you have to make, which is, do I want the same lawyers who can represent me now, um, and down the line at my series A, B, C, D, E? Do I want a lawyer that will grow with me, or do I want a lawyer where I save some money now and then I kinda upgrade to a bigger firm down the line? Totally fair. The only, like, nuance I would add is that the documents you negotiate at the series seed serve as the precedent for every financing after that.
Yeah.
So you want really good representation at the series seed, and very good representation is usually by lawyers who have done financings down the line. So you really wanna engage an attorney that does who represents clients from inception, so some early stage clients, pre-seed, seed, A, B, C, D, E,
Mhm.
and really ask that lawyer, like, "Do you have any Series C plus clients right now that you're representing?
Right.
Have you done a late stage financing recently?"
Mhm.
You need to be asking those questions because when I'm negotiating Series Seed docs, I'm saying, "We need to think about this now because it will become an issue at your Series E." And that's because of experience I have right now representing a Series E company.
Right.
Um, those of us that do late stage financings, we charge top dollar. And so if I were a founder, it would be worth it to me to have excellent counsel, spend some money, have some pain in early days, knowing that they can represent me the whole time. I would be reticent about counsel that only do early stage financings and don't do anything late stage. But I understand we're very expensive. I try to be very reasonable. A lawyer hack. Try to find a young lawyer who is aligned with you in growing their book of business. Like, in some ways, I'm a startup.
Mhm.
Like, I am growing my book of business. I think about top of funnel. I think about distribution channels. I think about CAC. I think about all of that stuff the same way a startup does.
Yeah.
And so we're really aligned. And so lately, I've been having to have this conversation quite often. How much does a Series Seed financing cost? And the market will tell you it costs 50 to 75K. This is quite aggravating for us lawyers because the market has been saying that for at least a decade. We increase our rates by about 10% every year.
Yeah.
It is no longer 50 to 75K. It is 100 to 150K to do a Series
Yeah.
Seed financing. Like, that's how much the billable hours are going to show on the, on our reports.
Right.
I pride myself on not being off market. I pride myself on being reasonable, on being founder friendly, on investing in relationships. I never charge more than 75K for a Series Seed financing, unless there's something, by the way, totally unusual. There
Yeah.
could be an LLC conversion or some additional piece that I would then itemize separately. I would say I'm still charging you 75K for the financing, but then I'm charging you this for this other weird thing. And that is really hard. That's like a 50% discount,
Yeah.
to do 75K. I just believe in investing in these relationships. I think it will come back around down the line, and it's really important to me. If you come to a lawyer who happens to have some more gray hair than I do, they may have less interest in being really amenable, and they may say, "Yeah, it's 150K." They probably won't even have the conversation with you. They'll just send you the bill and
Yeah.
say, like,
Well, of course it's
"Duh."
that.
Yeah.
And by the way, you're also covering your investors'
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
legal
yeah.
fees as well.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, that's a really important
Mhm.
point. Um, I'm so sorry, startup founders, but you pay your own legal fees and you pay your investors' legal
Mhm.
fees. I know that sounds really unfair. The issue is the economics of their management fee, where, like, they're if they have to pay their legal fees, then some of their management fee, the investor's management fee, would go towards that, and then their economics are all, like, wonky. I I have a lot of friends who are VCs, and I try to be understanding. You can negotiate how much you'll pay.
Yeah,
So
you can put a cap on it. Yeah,
exactly.
potentially, if you negotiate that.
And that's also what's really funny to me. The caps in term sheets are going up,
Mhm.
but the estimate of our legal fees are not going up. The adage is actually that the cap in the term sheet um, for the investor fees will come in at 3x that. So the cap I see for Series Seed financings is almost always at least 30K, if not more.
Yeah.
So then our fees would be 90K.
Mhm.
But the market does not want to pay that, and I try to be mindful of that. But I think like a young, scrappy startup partner is who is going to have that conversation with you. But fun fact, I still have been practicing for 12 years. I
Yeah.
started out as an M&A lawyer, so it took
Mhm.
me a longer time to become a startup to be promoted as a startup partner. So I still have a ton of experience. I was trained by those folks with more gray hair than me.
Yeah.
So I've done all those deals. Like, it's not that they will argue, right, that like her lack of experience is why she can charge less. But I don't think it's that I don't think it's that stark when we're all at the same firms, we're all trained together and that sort of thing. So I think it's a hack to try to find a partner who also thinks of herself as a startup.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing because you're so not like, I mean, you are, and I know you have a book of business, but
Yeah.
you have so much experience.
Yeah, I think it's great. And
Like,
my founders have a lot of experience
yes.
too, right? They're not like, especially in New York, they're not like 22-year-olds who don't have any experience. Like, so many of them, that's actually, again, those are outliers. The startup founders I know have a ton of experience. They could be out there making 500,000 in salary,
Yeah.
and they're giving that up to be a startup founder. So in the same way, it's not that any of us don't deserve more money.
Mhm.
It's that we're just excited to be building, and we're early in that part of our career. So you can take advantage of that by me billing a little less than some of my colleagues.
Addicted to the adrenaline of startups.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone on every side of the table, it feels like.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we're doing this.
Yes.
Sometimes I'm like, did I really choose a part of the law where, like, so many of my clients are gonna fail? It feels really unintuitive. But I believe in my founders. I really do, and I think, like, there's different levels of success, right? Maybe not all of them are gonna have 100x, exits, but I think that if it's not sometimes I think maybe it's not this startup, it's the next one. They will have success at some point, and so I'm just betting on them. But yeah, the adrenaline and the high risk, high reward is why we're all doing it. And
Yeah.
so even
And
the lawyers are like that.
and I can attest that you mean this because you said this to me outside of this room.
Yeah.
I had, the luck to be sitting next to you at a dinner where I
Yeah.
unfortunately spilled some sauce on you, but
Oh.
we knew each other before then. But,
Whatever.
we were talking about when startups don't work out
Yeah.
briefly. And
Uh-huh.
and because I have experience with that. And I can attest that you were like, yeah, I care for each of these founders, each of these
Yeah.
startups so much that it's very difficult.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
I'm really invested for sure.
Mhm.
And I believe in them, but I think that there are circumstances beyond their control sometimes. The it's not I know it's something that we all say, and people, maybe it's starting to like sound like a broken record, but only a couple percentage points of venture goes to all women teams, and It's like 20% if there's one woman in the founding team. If it's enterprise SaaS, it drops back down to 1 or 2%. Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh. It's very, very bad. So when we say 20% for founding teams that have one woman, it's not like 20% of like enterprise SaaS or AI startups or whatever. It's across the board. So it's pretty grim. So I know that sometimes there's circumstances outside of their control as to why they haven't been able to succeed. But I believe in them. I really do. And as I said, like maybe this startup won't work out, but I have a lot of faith that the next one or the one after that will work out. You get like it takes a certain um, personality to do this. And it's the only personality is like, I will win at all costs. And so I'm gonna bet on these. I'm gonna bet on these folks, and I hope they'll bet on me, and we're in it together.
Can we talk about, I guess, shutting down and also other transitions that you've seen founders go through? So, what I'm most interested in is your role as counsel. That's literally who you are.
Yes.
But also counseling these founders on what, again, the options are, what might be best for them personally.
Yeah, sure.
Like, do you ever get involved with that?
Yeah, so the good news is in early days, the founder is the company is the founder, and so there's not a ton of like conflict of interest there. So for those early days of helping them negotiate the terms of their initial stock issuances and stuff like that, I don't feel like there's a ton of um conflict of interest. What you're talking about though can be when thinking about an exit. The board has an obligation to maximize shareholder value and has fiduciary duties to the company and all stockholders. I represent the company, and so caring too much about the founders, in best interests can mean that maybe I'm not about the investors. And I've gone on and on in this interview that I'm founder friendly, and that's true. What I'll say, though, is that in those exit scenarios where there is some, it's a zero sum, right? The investors would get more and the founders would get more. And like, you have to kind of be thinking about those intricacies. That's not a home run sale. And so if that's not a home run sale, the founders very likely have a block on the sale of the company. So the founders being happy with the deal is actually important for the deal to get done.
Yeah.
So I do hope investors, I think really good investors understand this, that by ensuring that the founders are getting a good deal, it's ensuring that the deal gets done and they get any money. So try to view it in that lens. If you feel like the person doing the deal is the person sort of running the deal is going to be the founder, so they're going to be self-interested. The lawyer is representing, like, I actually can't represent a company. It's the people who run the company.
Yeah.
So there is going to be some amount of like bias towards those people, but I think we lawyers are very careful about it. We also have guardrails, right? We have Delaware law. We have, all the laws around fiduciary duties, or the kind of the case law around fiduciary duties to the company and all stockholders. So we advise our clients on how to make sure the transaction is on the up and up. If it's it is an interested party transaction for the founder to approve the transaction. So we have to get a majority of the disinterested stockholders to approve the deal. Like, we will make sure to advise them. So there are guardrails. This isn't just like we're just doing stuff and not provided any rules of the road. There's definitely rules of the road.
Yeah.
So the deal should be, good counsel will make sure that the deal is done abiding by those rules of the road, which will then ensure that the other stockholders, that their perspective is represented. And just to get really intricate, like you could even appoint a special committee of the board of directors to approve the transaction, and they can get their own counsel.
Yeah.
So like there are varying degrees
Yeah.
to ensure that everyone's interests are represented. And so good lawyers will help you kind of walk through that.
Have you ever had a founder come to you and say, I'm done, but my company is still like, I want my company to live on, but I'm out?
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. that happens all the time, and in my view, I think I would go out on a limb and say that's how you know you have a very successful company,
Yeah.
is that you can step away and it will continue. So no, that happens a lot, and we help. We will have conversations with the board separately if we need to, um, or with the founder. But honestly, like, um, I think lawyers are sometimes better not in those conversations because it should be collegial and everyone should be able to figure this out.
Should be.
But yeah, I know it can be challenging.
Yeah.
So again, in that scenario, going back to what I said before, if the founder steps away and an executive CEO comes in, it's very common for the law firm to be terminated and a new law firm to come in.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, at that point, and I totally respect that. It's like
Yeah.
a new guard is coming in and they want to feel like everyone is on their team and not on the founder's team. So sometimes there can be a shift. I also will always recommend that founders do actually get their own counsel to review stuff.
Mm.
So, especially like employment counsel, like if there's a separation agreement, like I can counsel you, but in that scenario, I definitely represent the company,
Yeah.
and that's very challenging. So I always recommend that you get your own counsel. And I have great solo practitioners that were formerly at law firms that are doing their own thing, and that can represent the founders in those situations. So I help you like navigate that stuff for sure.
Love that.
But really recommend get your own counsel if there's like an elaborate offer letter or separation agreement to negotiate, and get your own tax advisor to help you navigate like equity tax, like concepts are very hard to understand. And I want my founders to be like advised on that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, how has early stage investing evolved over the last couple of years with AI? Talk to me about that a
Yeah.
little bit.
The goalposts have moved, right? Like, it's so hard. I don't even know that it's AI. I would go back to like 2020 and 2021,
Yeah.
people raising like crazy. I actually have a very cynical take on why that is. I truly think it's because VCs had nothing else to do but like take a million meetings every day. And so they got themselves really worked up because they were like, I'm seeing so many more companies. Like, I have to invest in all of these. I mean, that's really, I think, what spurred a lot of the um, momentum in those couple of years. And then, of course, those valuations are too high, and now there's been a correction. A lot of funds that thought they would see liquidity sooner have not seen liquidity. The capital markets, like, still haven't opened up the way that we would want them to, and the chaos of the world is making it just impossible. And so late stage financings haven't happened, so we haven't seen that liquidity. So there's been a valuation correction where people want to maintain a higher ownership than, they would have a few years ago. So there's a valuation correction. There's like much more scrutiny now of the deals themselves, like the diligence that people are doing
It's a lot more,
is
isn't
a
it?
lot more.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Diligence of like now all investors like all institutional investors, actually some angel like
Yeah.
groups
Yep.
due diligence just like VC funds. So anytime there's anyone institutional, they're doing so much diligence. They're diligencing obviously your model, but they're also doing diligence on your customers. They all want to talk to customers. They all they want to see projections out multiple years. There's a lot more scrutiny in the in diligence. I'm not seeing like, oh, accelerated, like they want to do legal diligence before they sign a term sheet. I'm not
Yeah.
seeing that. So like, I think some of my startup founders are like, oh my gosh, I have to clean up everything before the term. It's like, it's okay. We'll like, let's see kind of how things go. Like if I'm bringing in a client who's represented by other counsel and they're really worried about the issues with their documentation, I'll assess the issues and be like, here are the 5 things we need to clean up, but I'll help you decide if you need to do that now or after the term sheet's signed. But the goalposts have moved. Like I said, What used to be, you can raise a Series A at $1 million of ARR. I think that's
Forget
like
about it. Yeah, it's gone.
totally gone.
Yeah.
I would say it's like 3 to 4 million of ARR, but then you have these outliers that are like 100 million of ARR. Remember the first R in ARR,
Yeah.
annual recurring revenue? There's a lot of skepticism about revenue being recurring or not.
Mhm.
So even if you're at 3 to 4 million of revenue, like, do people actually believe it's recurring? There's just the goalposts have moved, and I don't think that there's like one adage anymore that works. I do think showing that 3 to 4x growth
Mhm.
from seed to A is going to be very compelling. The problem is that, remember, if you only have 100K of ARR at the seed, 3 to 4x is still only 3 to 400K of ARR.
Yeah.
So like that's not enough.
Yep.
Right? But if you were $1 million at seed and you get to 3 to 4 million at A, I think that's compelling.
Right now.
Yeah,
It could change. That's it seems like things are
definitely.
yes, it's literally something you
Definitely.
need to check
Also,
in.
like, then you talk to a startup founder that's like, I'm raising my Series A on 0 revenue. I'm still
Yeah.
pre-launch. I
Yeah.
see that. I see that with non-AI companies. Like, it just depends on the conviction that investors feel like,
That's incredible.
oh yeah, I do know some pre-revenue Series A companies, non-AI. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Does it seem to be in a particular sector or other than, AI, but is it like
Sometimes it's
biotech?
hard tech,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
biotech
Mm.
or hard tech where it's actual
Yeah.
hardware. You have to raise so much money to actually build
Yeah.
well, maybe not necessarily. Yes, you have to raise a lot of money for the prototype. You have to raise a lot of money to put the product in market.
Mhm.
So I see it there. But no, I have some like not the hard tech, like not super capital intensive, but the thing they're doing is so unique and the investors have such conviction that no one else is doing it and that they should be doing it that like, yeah, they can raise multiple rounds of financings on that conviction. So I wouldn't get this happens a lot. I like present at events and that sort of thing, and people sort of raise their hands and they're like, um, you know, I had an investor say like, I don't have enough traction. I only have like 500K of ARR. And I'm like, sometimes like believe the no, but not the reason.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Like just take the no and keep it moving
Yep.
because they often will need to come up with a reason for why they said no, but they really just were they really were they said no. Okay, they said no based on vibes, but the vibes are based on a ton of experience,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
It's all this experience is
Mhm.
dumped into this VC investor. So their instincts are
Yeah.
presumably very good. If they're on more than fund 1, if they've returned a fund and they're on fund 2 plus, like then their instincts are very good.
Mhm.
And so that's what's making them say no. And sometimes they're like, I don't know how to explain this, and so I'm gonna say not enough ARR,
Yeah.
or I'm gonna say, it's not in thesis,
Mhm.
um, and I'm gonna make up, any number of reasons. So believe the no, not the reason, just kinda keep it moving. You have to have confidence in yourself, and so, like, yeah, I don't know that there's anything that I live and die by where I'm like, "You have to have this in order to raise
Mhm.
X, Y, or Z round." But I think that I would die by the rule that like there needs to be exponential growth. That's the
Mhm.
like thesis behind venture capital.
Yeah.
These aren't small businesses with straight line growth, there's exponential growth. So if you can show that exponential growth, then I think you can raise money. But there are multiple ways to show that. And so you got to work on your story and have conviction in yourself.
Yeah.
It's really
I think having a strong filter on feedback is
Yeah.
really important. And some of that's just like, again, like if someone says no,
Yeah.
take it and go
Yeah.
because they're doing you a favor with a
Yes.
fast no.
Yeah, absolutely. And it can't discourage you. I mean,
Yeah.
it used to kind of be like it takes 100 no's to get to yes. I actually tell my founders it's 200 no's.
Yeah.
I think it's like somewhere between 150 to 200.
Yeah.
Like if you talk to any founder, And I am including the cold emails. Like, the cold emails are no's. Like, if you send out a cold email and don't get a response, that is a no.
Yep.
Um, almost every investor reads every email. I will say, though, a lot of investors from the first sentence can pass because they're just like, oh, I already have, AI for
Barbecue.
barbecues. Yeah, exactly. AI for smokers. Exactly. I already have that in my portfolio. So like I know that I'm not investing in that. Or I've been burned so many times on events or travel or sports or whatever. I just don't invest in those sectors anymore. So, but that's still a no, and that goes on your spreadsheet. And so that adds to it. So then if we're counting all of that, it's 200 no's to get to yes. And it's a numbers game. It really is. I tell a lot of my founders who are more traditional, like my dude founders, that think about how a woman would run this process and run it that way. My women founders are so methodical and organized with having a giant spreadsheet. They list out all the investors that could possibly invest in their sector. They're actually discerning. They're not putting like investors who invest at series, growth stage investors. They're like realistic.
Yeah.
They're putting their spreadsheet together. They're figuring out who can give them warm intros. They're tracking that. Then they're doing cold outreach. They're doing it so methodically. It's like, I think everyone should be doing it that way. So a lot of times I have my male founders reach out to women founders I know to ask them how they ran their process. And I'm like, if you do that, like if it worked for these women founders that struggle to find money, then it's definitely going to work for you. So methodical. But it takes so many no's to get to a yes. You can't be discouraged by the no's.
Yeah. And I think having the process,
Yeah.
running a tight process, bulking your meetings if you can, and then realizing that you are also finding your investors and your investors are finding you.
Yeah.
So, when I'm looking for a pair of shoes, I'm very discerning.
Yes.
And literally I can look at a pair and be like, no, love that, but not that. Like, think about that when you're looking at your investors, not your, but also in how they're looking at you. There are some things that are just not going to be a good fit for
That's right. And they're spending a lot more money on you than shoes.
Yes.
So it makes sense that they're going to be very discerning.
So you take the note, keep moving, keep the conversation going, hit 200 no's, and you'll probably have your round done.
That's right. And then also they may have said no because you're too early. That is very, very common. And some of them are honest about they're actually being honest. It's hard to distinguish between that. But keep track of those people who said no because you're too early, not because you're out of thesis or like whatever other reason. And then they should go onto a mailing list so that you are reaching out to them. I'm a little like unsure on whether it should be monthly or quarterly. Like some investors say like monthly updates aren't great if you don't show a ton of movement. Some investors are like, I love to get monthly updates, even if there is a little bit of movement, then I can really track it. So I think it's like different tastes. So actually go based on what makes sense to you that you'll actually do. So if you're someone who can execute on it monthly, great. If it's quarterly, that's fine. But keep those investors up to date because they may come back around. It very much can happen. Or investors are actually really great about making intros to other investors. Like I know so many quality investors that when they pass, they then offer to make introductions to like 10 other funds.
That's amazing.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And so like keep investors that pass, some of them, just take them off the list. Like it's just not right. But some of them might have genuinely said it's too early and you should keep them on the mailing list.
Yeah. And then go out to them if you get the majority of your round done. Let them know.
Absolutely.
Because they might want to come in. But also, we have a CRM and it's like, go out to them when you're ready for seed. Go out to them for when you're raising A. Like,
absolutely.
Doesn't hurt to reach out to people.
That's right.
Add them to your list. And with the company that I just did a Series A with, we already have people on our Series B contact list.
Right.
Because we've been talking to them.
Yep. Yeah. And investors love to be talked to when you're not actually pitching them so that they can learn more about your startup and start a relationship early on. So that's also, I do think you should be methodical and spend your time talking to investors that actually invest at your stage.
Yes.
It's really, really important. But it doesn't mean that you shouldn't take like opportunistic conversations with later stage investors.
Yeah, very good point.
Yeah.
We weren't going out trying to hit Series B people early on. We just...
It happens.
Yeah, it happens sometimes. we've been talking for a while, and I want to be mindful of time. So I wanted to, do you have any terms or things that you're seeing where founders get kind of hung up on
Yeah.
when they're doing deals that you don't think are the most important thing?
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about how they over-index on dilution instead of control. So we've talked about that a number of times. But I would say I think there needs to be an understanding that there will be some veto rights
Mhm.
that investors will have. And they can have veto rights at the stockholder level, or they can have veto rights as a director. So take, XYZ Ventures. Actually, I think there is an XYZ
Yes, I think
Ventures.
there is.
Okay, let's take Helena Ventures. Okay. Um, they have a board seat. They got a board seat or a preferred director board seat. Your venture fund could have blocking rights as you as a director, that you block certain actions by the company, or you have blocking rights at the stockholder level, which means that Helena Ventures would have a block as a stockholder on certain actions by the company.
Mhm.
This is a technical point, but since I have the floor, I will take it, which is that as a director, you owe fiduciary duties to the company and all stockholders. So your veto rights at the director level
Yeah.
are actually better for the company
Yeah.
than at the stockholder level. As a stockholder, you can operate totally irrationally, self-interested. You owe no fiduciary duties to anyone.
Yeah.
So it might be something that your venture fund wants to block,
Yeah.
but can only do that at the stockholder level. As a director who owes fiduciary duties to the company and all stockholders, you wouldn't be able to block it because it would be irrational and a breach of your fiduciary duties. So when we're negotiating the veto rights, these
I don't think I
blocking
can get
rights,
my mind around this. So let's take Helena Ventures.
please, yes,
I get a board seat
yes,
because I'm fancy like that.
definitely. It's
Um,
hopefully at the Series A and not the C. I don't want to give you a board seat.
okay, that's fine. In that case, do I automatically have a fiduciary duty just to the company, and I don't also have the stockholder block, or
No,
do
you
I have
you
either
have
one?
you have fiduciary duties to the company and all stockholders.
Yes.
And so what that means is that if you are given the opportunity, like if it says that if we want to hire or fire any executive officers,
Mhm.
so like your COO, we want to fire the COO. If it says that Helena Ventures has a preferred director block, then you have to think about that from the perspective of maximizing like value and fiduciary duties to the company and all stockholders.
Yep.
You can't just operate in a self-interested way
Mhm.
if it's a preferred director veto. If it's a stockholder veto, so Helena Ventures has a block on it at the stockholder level, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
So a good example of that is a financing.
Right.
So you have a preferred stockholders, the previous round has a block on the next financing.
Mhm.
A lot of my founders hate to hear that.
Mhm.
And I'm like, that is market, and I don't think I can move the market.
Yeah.
The only thing I can do is maybe say if there's more than a certain step up in valuation, you no longer have a block. So like if there's a 3x step up in valuation, the block falls away.
Mhm.
I win that point very infrequently. It is market standard that the existing investors have a block on the next round.
Yeah.
That is at the stockholder level. So the investors can operate in a way that is self-interested, and it might actually be bad for the company.
Yeah. But what if they have a board seat?
If they have a board seat, they maybe have to approve the financing
Yeah.
at the board level, but they could block it at the stockholder level. Yeah.
All right.
So this is the kind of stuff that I want you to be listening to your lawyers about.
Yeah.
To say like, hey, I want you to fight for this thing to be
Yeah.
a preferred director approval, not a preferred stockholder approval. And you're sort of like, Yashreeka, why are you so fussed about this? A block is a block. It's
Yeah.
like, no, a block is not a block. Some blocks are better than other blocks. Vetoes, blocks, approval rights. I'm using those
And
words
this is not
interchangeably.
uncommon, because I already have an example in my
It's
head
totally common.
of someone who's going, like, who may
Yes.
may
Yeah.
go through this.
Your financing is never going to be at a preferred director approval level. That's
Yeah.
always going to be stockholder. But things like debt
Yeah.
sometimes can be a director level approval or a stockholder level approval. We want it to be director level, because they have to do what's best for the entire company and all stockholders.
Yeah.
But at the stockholder level, they can block stuff irrationally. So debt's a really good example of something we want to be at the director level, not at the stockholder level. Another one is increasing the option pool.
Mm-hmm.
So that increasing the option pool dilutes the whole cap table.
Yeah.
So stockholders might not be happy about it. But as a director, you're like, we need to make this big CMO hire. We have to have more equity in the equity incentive plan. We've got to increase the EIP. So as a director, they maybe have to approve that EIP increase. As a stockholder, they're like, I said I was going to have 10% of the company as of the last financing. I don't want that to change till the next financing.
Yeah.
So they could block it. So that's another one. So yeah, I would say I know it's really, really technical, but it's why your lawyer needs to like guide you through this stuff. But it's not just that veto rights are bad. It's that veto rights can be more bad if they are at the stockholder level versus the director level.
Yeah, for sure.
Technical, very technical, but like just trying to put information out there
Technical,
to
but
make you, and to make founders like hear this and go, maybe I should dial in a little more when my lawyer's talking about this stuff. Like,
I think you should dial in much more when you're talking to your lawyer, regardless. Yes.
Yeah.
Because you're paying a lot of money for this kind of advice.
That's right. That's
Yes.
right.
All right. So
Yeah.
let's get to our closing part because I know you have places to be.
I do.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I've kept you
got
long.
founders I gotta go talk to, and
So
yeah.
You've made me feel very calm in some ways during our conversation with your context about AI,
Yeah.
which feels like it could be changing the world and replacing everybody. But maybe people before us felt that way about email
I think so.
and
Internet.
computers.
Google, generally, that we could like just Google answers. Like that was an incredible advancement.
So you've had a really calming effect on me, which I appreciate. How do you keep yourself like centered and calm when you are running your practice?
Yeah.
And you have a full life. And you have requirements, I imagine, of staying on top of all this information and everything that's going on in the startup world.
Yeah. I actually often I tell people like ask your lawyer about their personal life and like whether they're taking care of themselves.
Yeah.
So I do the sort of like stereotypical things for sure, which is I eat healthy and I work out. But I also care about my sleep hygiene. I think it's a flex to not sleep a lot, right? A lot of people flex on sorry. That is a common flex. I think it's a flex to say I sleep a lot, actually.
Yeah.
I've got young kids, so I'm not sleeping like 10, 12 hours. But where I could sneak in 8 to 9 hours, I really do. And I think like my wife really supports me in that.
Yeah.
And so she's incredible and she's a morning person. So we really have kind of a division of labor. I'm not morning mom. I'm really not morning mom.
Yeah.
And so sleep hygiene is really, really important. And I think that then during my awake hours, I'm operating at full function. So I'm eating well, I'm working out, I'm sleeping well, I'm drinking water. I'm also going to therapy. 2 different therapists. I have my own therapist and then I have a couples therapist.
Amazing.
The health of my relationship is so important.
It's very important.
And so that's a really important form of self-care. So I have those stereotypical ones. I would say ones that are a little less stereotypical is like I've got great friends. I have amazing friends that check in on each other. It's vibrant. They're really my chosen family for sure. And I like to say that like belly laughing is so restorative. And my friends are like making jokes that make me belly laugh. And so it just is like, it's so restorative. So like my chosen family is so important. Last and probably most importantly is that my children really ground me.
Yeah.
When I feel like things are just like I'm overwhelmed and I'm like the world is ending, I'm grounded by my children who make me realize like there's nothing better in the world than these 2 little munchkins who are so they're so happy.
Yeah.
They're so happy and so joyful, and they kind of center me and ground me. So I would say like that when everything is crazy, I just think, oh, but I get to like read. My son now, he's this is a flex. He's reading, which is
Yeah.
incredible. He's only 5 years old,
It's great.
so he reads a book to me. I read a book to
That's
him.
so good.
Yeah, his books are these, like, tiny books, and
Yeah.
I'm just so grateful. Like, there's so much stuff now out there than what we had as kids.
Yeah.
But, no matter what, sort of my day comes to this moment where I get to have this special moment with my son, like, that's really grounding. It's really, that kinda keeps me focused when things are really spiraling out of control.
Yeah, I think the belly laugh thing is also probably
Belly
helpful when you have tickle fights
Yeah.
and someone jumping on on your bed or anything
That's
like that.
right. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. And my wife is a real jokester. So there's a lot of I'm like the I don't know, I'm like kind of the boring, like, let's talk about our feelings, mom. And my wife is like the jokester. And so yeah, there's a lot of belly laughing in our household as
Yeah.
well.
It's
Yeah. But
wonderful.
I think friends are really important
Hmm.
too. Like I think we over index a little bit on like on children and family and all, but, like, maintain your adult friendships. They're really, really important.
So important.
Yeah.
And I think also, well, just I was gonna say as a parent, like so
Yeah.
important because
Yeah, absolutely.
you have your work self,
Mhm.
you have your at home self with
Yeah.
your kids, and I think just being a person,
Yes,
an adult person with
absolutely.
other adult
Yeah.
people is really
Having
wonderful.
conversations that are not about your children, like, also people who know you before who you are now, like, really ground you, right? Because 'Cause
Yeah.
they're like, "I remember when you were, like, puking on a Saturday night,
Yes.
so don't try to, like, pretend like it's grounding, it's humbling
It's
in a
grounding.
wonderful way."
Yes.
Like, I
But
think it's I love that I still have people in my life who
yeah.
saw me before who I am now. And it's also like when they celebrate me,
Yes.
it's so much more special.
Yeah.
When I was promoted to partner a year ago, so January 1 of last year, I had a partner promotion party,
Nice.
which like celebrate your professional wins. Like it doesn't always have to be birthdays and and weddings and baby showers. Like we can celebrate our professional wins. And so I threw a banger of a party
Yeah.
and it was awesome. And so yeah, like having my friends there who saw me go through everything that I went through to become a partner, like we were all celebrating like as a group. Like we all did this. We
Yeah.
all became a partner, in that moment. So it was really special.
I think sometimes your friends can also remind you of the magic that they see in you
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
that you might not get reflected to at work or
Yeah.
at home at times because it's
Yeah.
especially when you're a parent, there's just a lot of like
And I have
uh,
very real friendships where they, sometimes tell me about myself
yeah.
and I don't wanna hear it. And so I've had some professional moments where I've kind of felt like I've tied all my self-worth to, like, some professional milestone,
Yes.
and if it's not happening, I'm internalizing it, I'm like, "It must be me," and I just need to keep fighting at that, like, to make it happen, and my friends have been the ones who have been like, "Yashreeka, like, you have tied your self-worth to that milestone. You need to, like, take a step back, see the bigger picture," and it's helped me, like, truly change course and navigate. One thing I'll say is, like, I think it's hard for a woman who looks like me and acts like me, like and I'm not even talking on the boxes I check. I just have personality. I'm, like, a real person and a whole person. I bring that whole person to all situations. I think it's hard for me to get promoted just, like,
Mhm.
up the line at a law firm, like and I think I had to sort of pinball my way to the top,
Yeah.
and so in order to do that, you have to know that, like, it's not gonna work out at that place, and you need to move on, you know? And in those moments, it can be really hard to see that. My friends have really helped me navigate that and have the confidence to, like,
Mhm.
it's time to pinball, and then I've gotten to where that where I want to be, and I think
Mhm.
I didn't waste a ton of time, kind of, banging my head against a wall. And it was my, friends and family who helped support me through that.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really lucky.
So I really appreciate you coming on and giving us all your time.
Yeah.
It has been so wonderful.
This has been a lot of fun.
And literally the chance to be in a room with you for an hour is fantastic. And I hope that everyone listening has just gotten so much from this conversation.
Amazing. All right.
Absolutely. So thank you. And I'm Helena Fogarty, and this is Inside Startup Funding.